And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the King Jordan Radio Show Live. It is Season 5, Episode 25 tonight, April 6, 2017. Tonight on the program, we'll be discussing the trending topic that is Bill Reilly and the allegations against him. Also, the other trending story we'll talk about is the teacher and the student who went missing. There was some sightings. We'll talk about that with our guest. Also, Bill Cosby is finally set to go to trial in the month of June this year. Also, the mayor of New York looks to close down Rikers Island. Let's bring in our guest for the evening. He is a legal analyst, one of the best lawyers in the world. He works here in New York City. He's a wonderful guest to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Sanchez joins us tonight. Good evening, Alex. How are you?
All right, Jordan. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know if it's completely deserved, but I certainly appreciate it. And it's great to be here on the show.
Absolutely. So how's everything with you?
Oh, everything's okay. I mean, just busy. I was just working up until a few minutes ago trying to put together a legal document for one of my clients. And that's the way it is when you practice law. Sometimes you're up late and you're working hard and you're worried about other people's lives. And other times there's a lull and things are slow.
How many years you're at this?
Relax. And I've been doing this since 1981. And before that, I did internships. Really, almost like from 1978, because I started doing internships with federal judges and legal aid societies. I was in the district attorney's office, even in college.
Right.
So I've been around for a long time doing this. Yeah.
So when you were a kid, did you ever think you were going to do this? Was that your plan?
I was always interested in becoming a criminal trial attorney. Recently I've been watching the Perry Mason episodes, and when I was a kid I used to love that show. And I watch these shows and I still enjoy them. Now they're not exactly realistic because you see Perry Mason never loses a case. And there's no attorney on the face of the earth that never loses a case. The only one I know of is Perry Mason. But it's still good entertainment.
Yeah, they had some good shows in the old time. Columbo, right?
Oh, yeah. I used to like Columbo. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. He played the bumbling detective. You know, unfortunately with what was his name? Peter, what's the guy that played Columbo? Peter
Falk.
I can't. Yeah, Peter Falk. You know, he eventually became very senile, and he was running up and down wherever he lived. I'm not sure if it was in California, acting like a very disoriented, person whose mind had greatly dissipated. And I thought that was kind of sad. People grow old and people get sick, and where they were once great, they're no longer great. They're great in our minds and in our history, but in reality, time has a way of eating away at the best of us.
You can't fight time, no matter what. And speaking of that, today we lost Don Rickles at 90. Did you ever see any of his work? And if so, what was your thoughts on him?
I like Don Rickles. I mean, I didn't see him live, but I thought he was very funny.
Right.
And him with the insults. I mean, nobody likes to be insulted, but he did it in a way that was funny. And he was always on the Johnny Carson show, and he was one of the great ones. I liked him. I like Rodney Dangerfield. Remember him with, "Hey, I don't get no respect."
Oh yeah.
That guy was hilarious. And I don't find too many comedians particularly funny, but those guys are funny. And when you hear somebody like that, Diamond, it's like a whole era just went down the tubes.
Yeah.
That guy
George
just represented like a. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was friends with all these big shots, and when these guys die, it's like, a piece of history,
no
just
question.
dying.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, let's talk about this Bill O'Reilly situation. I want to get your take on it, if you believe or what story, but here's the story behind the story.
Fox News anchor Bill O'Reilly is feeling the heat in the wake of a New York Times report saying at least 5 women have received financial settlements after complaining of sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior, including one reported $9 million settlement. And as Jim Murray reports today, another woman spoke out, therapist Wendy Walsh, who says she didn't get a job at Fox after she rebuffed O'Reilly's advances.
She's the well-known TV expert who's accusing Bill O'Reilly of inappropriate behavior.
I had a business dinner with Mr. Bill O'Reilly, and he asked me to go to his hotel room afterwards.
Dr. Wendy Walsh, once a frequent guest on the top-rated O'Reilly Factor, held a press conference Monday, leveling shocking allegations against Fox News' biggest star.
After I declined, he became hostile and eventually barred me from Fox News.
Wendy Walsh claims she and O'Reilly had dinner here at the Hotel Bel Air in 2013. She claims he promised her a lucrative job as a regular contributor to Fox News, and she says he invited her to his hotel suite. Instead, she suggested having drinks at the bar, at which point she claims he became hostile and says she could forget any career advice he had given her. She says the next time she met O'Reilly was when she was on the set of his show.
He looked up from his scripts and he said, "When are you leaving?" And that was the last words he ever said to me. He caught himself because everyone looked at him like, where'd that come from out of the blue? And he said, didn't you say you were going on vacation or something? And then very soon after, he had the executive producer of the show call me and say that they're going to take a break from the segment for a little while.
Her lawyer, Lisa Bloom.
She has chosen to speak out against one of the most powerful men in American media.
Walsh, a relationship expert, is also a regular guest on Inside Edition. The 54-year-old therapist first went public with her disturbing allegations in the New York Times. The article claims O'Reilly and Fox News have paid out $13 million to settle claims of sexual harassment or other inappropriate behavior over the years. The women receiving payouts reportedly include former Fox newscasters Lori Dew, Juliette Huddy, and Rebecca Gomez-Diamond. Walsh is not one of those who reached a settlement, nor did she lodge a complaint with Fox.
I'm not litigious. I don't want any money. There's no lawsuit. It's just authentic honesty.
O'Reilly, a former host of Inside Edition, says in a statement, "The worst part of my job is being a target for those who would harm me and my employer, the Fox News Channel. Those of us in the arena are constantly at risk, as are our families and children." He made a similar point in an interview with Seth Meyers last year.
In this country, every famous, powerful, or wealthy person is a target. You're a target, I'm a target.
O'Reilly's statement goes on, "In my more than 20 years at Fox News Channel, no one has ever filed a complaint about me with the Human Resources Department, even on the anonymous hotline." What would Walsh say to O'Reilly now?
I would say that I'm sorry you're going through this, but workplaces are not mating marketplaces, and you should just try Tinder.
Fox News says in a statement, quote, "We have looked into these matters over the last few months and discussed them with Mr. O'Reilly. While he denies the merits of these claims, Mr. O'Reilly has resolved those he regarded as his personal responsibility."
Okay, Alex. First of all, what do you make of this? Second of all, if you were his, if he, called you for some advice, what would you just tell him to do?
Well, I'd like to know, $9 million. I'm thinking, that kind of money, I'm gonna somehow make my way over there and try to get myself sexually harassed, so I could file some type of lawsuit against him or anybody over there, and that's a lot of money. But all kidding aside, I mean, the idea that women could go to work and somehow be hustled for sex with someone holding the prospect of employment or a job or their career over, to me, I find that, it's so egregious. I have a wife, I have 2 daughters. I don't want something like that happening to them or any woman I know. I think that's absolutely outrageous. I cannot stand the idea of someone holding somebody else hostage, and that's particularly egregious. And are they saying down there at the Fox News channel that this is, some left-wing, MSNBC, CNN, fake news conspiracy trying to tear down O'Reilly? The women that go on a show, for the most part, are conservative commentators. Those are the ones that end up on the show. And so I think we can, if anybody's making a suggestion, this is some conspiracy of the left, forget about it. That's not going to make it. This must be some right-wing conspiracy then, I guess. That's a conservative network. Those women that work there in comments, because I watch that show sometimes, as I watch other shows, they're conservatives. So what is he saying, that all these conservative women have banded together, have all agreed to create some fraudulent lie, committed all kinds of crimes by filing false, legal papers, and have put their own careers and their own reputations on the line? I'm not buying it. To me, the guy, he's a disturbed personality. There's something not right about him. You know that guy once wrote a book. He once wrote a book, believe it or not, about being a serial killer, but he was a serial killer that was killing other journalists. Yeah, he wrote a book like that. Yeah, there's something not right about him. Yes, he's smart. Yes, he has some interesting things to say and some interesting comments to say. But just because a person is smart, because they have talent, and because they're famous, does not mean you can't be sick at the same time. I think we learned that lesson with the Michael Jacksons of the world. We learned that lesson with the O.J. Simpsons of the world. We learned that lesson over and over again. And it's the same thing with Bill O'Reilly. Now, you asked me, what advice would I give Bill O'Reilly? If he came to me and I was advising him, I probably would give him very different advice than what other lawyers would give him. You see, right now, the other lawyers are telling him, and he's probably not one to listen to lawyers, but more likely than not, the lawyers are telling him, listen, you just deny, pull the old Trump routine, and just deny forever, no matter what, unless there's absolutely irrefutable, incontrovertible evidence, like a videotape of you committing an offense. Then maybe you can reluctantly make an admission. I wouldn't do that. I think at this point, I think he needs to go on TV and make a mea culpa and say, you know something, I have made some mistakes in the past. I have said some things that were inappropriate to women in the past. Yes, I have done that. And it was a mistake on my part. I want to apologize to those people. Okay? It was an error. And if Fox believes that, I need to take a leave of absence or be suspended from my work, or the viewers think that I should be punished, I can accept that. Okay? We make mistakes in life, and I'm going to try to be a better person the next time around. But he's not going to do that. It's not within his psychological constitution to do that. He's going to just retreat, and he's not the type to ever admit that he's made a mistake. But these people are coming forward, and advertisers are pulling out, and sooner or later, something's going to break. As far as my prediction, I think he's finished on that show. I think all the advertisers pulling out are going to doom that show, because ultimately, all Fox cares about is money, and all its investors care about is money. And if they're going to start losing money because of him, he's out, because that's the only thing they care about. It's not about morality. It's not about what's right or what's wrong. It's not about, trying to do the right thing. It's about money. And always keep your eye on the ball. It's about money.
It's definitely going to hurt him no matter what, true or false. These allegations hurt people no matter what. The only thing that could be worse than these being true are that these are false allegations. And that's a possibility, highly unlikely, but if these were proved to be false or maybe over-exaggerated a little. It ruined his career. But I don't know why she would say that, not want a dime. The one who was talking earlier, she's not even asking for a penny. So
yeah, and that
gives her,
that hurts. That gives her credibility. It hurts O'Reilly. What is O'Reilly going to say? This is not about money. Is he going to say, well, it's about fame? She's trying to become famous. Well, she already has a following. She's well known. And there's an old saying that came out of Europe. 50 million Frenchmen can't be wrong. And when you get, it's one thing for one person to make an accusation. When you get 4,
right.
5, 6, and you've paid out money. One of the accusations against O'Reilly, from what I understand, there was a recorded conversation was he was making disgraceful remarks to some woman. And that's why he resolved the matter and paid out so much money. I would say, okay, if this is all fraud, let's hear the tape. Let's get the tape out. Let me tell you something. If I ever had him on the witness stand, he'd be destroyed, because all he has to do is deny that any of these things ever happened. Once you deny it, then you're allowed to bring in evidence to show that he's lying. So he is in a very legally awkward position right now. And right now he's hoping that the case blows away. He's trying to, I don't know what this business about the no spin zone that he runs over there at the O'Reilly factor. Oh, yeah, they're trying to spin this big time. Oh, yeah, they've got all the experts. They got all the media consultants. They got the lawyers. They got the financial people. Let's all sit down and figure out how we can spin this. That's not the no spin zone that he's been promoting in that show,
Right.
Because that's a show. But reality is reality. And then you get down to reality, these people are spinning left and right. And they're going to keep spinning because they're trying to save the show, and they're trying to save money, and they're trying to save, resources, and they're trying to keep their investors and advertisers. But I think it's past that tipping point. I think the point is past. And now it's on the beginning of the downhill slide. And as it goes further and further down that slide, it becomes more and more difficult to make a reversal and climb back up that hill. That's what I think is going to happen here, and is happening.
It's going to be a big-time battle, but I would say in a few years he'll be okay in terms of people will look at him, but I think he'll still be on the air as long as he's on the air now. I know it's a terrible situation. Like you said, you have your wife and your daughter to think of it. If they were in that boat, that would be horrible. Horrible for anybody. It's not right. And let's see. Let's hope that justice goes to the way of the truth here. But let's talk about. People do have to answer for their conduct eventually. So let's hope we get some answers. Totally agree. So there was a teacher of 50 years old, and he took off with this student. Here's the background we'll talk about.
It's the just-released video of the teacher and the student he ran off with. It's the first official sighting of 15-year-old Beth Thomas and her 50-year-old teacher, Tad Cummins, since they disappeared 2 weeks ago. The just-released images are from a surveillance camera at a Walmart in Oklahoma City. The date was March 15th, 2 days after they fled Tennessee. The new images are a major break in the case that has riveted the nation. Look at the clues. Beth's dirty blonde hair has been dyed red. She's wearing a baggy flannel shirt, and it seems to be Cummins. Here he is wearing an identical plaid shirt the day before he took off. Now look at Cummins. His gray beard has been dyed brown. You may remember he was seen buying brown hair dye the day before he absconded with Beth. Now we know why.
Investigators say while they were at this Walmart, they used cash to buy food items, but investigators say there was nothing else of significance that they purchased.
Now look at this. It's an image from a McDonald's in Kearney, Nebraska, and it was taken just last night, April 2nd. Kearney is 450 miles from Oklahoma City. Is the net closing in? Police say they're not sure, calling the McDonald's sighting unconfirmed. It is possible we had a spotting of the victim and suspect, Kearney police said. Cops included photos of this pickup truck Cummins and Beth might be driving now. They were last seen in a silver Nissan Rogue. Use caution as the suspect has possession of 2 handguns, cops said. Meanwhile, another significant development. Cummins' wife Jill has just filed for divorce. You may remember her dramatic public plea 2 weeks ago for her husband to give himself up.
Please do the right thing and turn yourself into the police and bring Beth home.
Her attorney says, quote, the filing of the divorce is the first step to removing Jill from this situation. Jill will attempt to move forward with her life.
Okay, Alex, this is a big story that everybody's talking about. This Sid teacher and, well, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, it doesn't sound like they're, living the high life on the road. I mean, they're at McDonald's, they're at Walmart. I mean, God knows where they're sleeping,
Oh, my.
Probably at Bates Motel or something like that. But this guy, I mean, this is the ultimate example of, some guy suffering from some midlife crisis or something. 50 years old, running off with a 15-year-old student. I mean, this guy has some very serious, unresolved psychiatric or psychological disorders. And I don't know how he thinks he can get away with this. I mean, he's all over the newspapers.
Cameras.
There's cameras. How much money does? I mean, unless he's riding around with a briefcase filled with $500,000, I mean, sooner or later, someone's going to catch up with you. So this is nothing but a.
If they catch him, when and if they catch him, what is he looking at in terms of what charges?
He might be facing kidnapping, even though she went with him voluntarily. A 15-year-old really can't volunteer to just be taken across state lines and be taken off with a man. He's probably facing, might be facing some type of sexual assault charges, even though she may have consented to some sexual relationship. You can't consent if you're under a certain age. So, there's a number of different charges that he could be facing. Of course, it's complicated by the fact that she's voluntarily left with him. But, he's finished as a person. He's going to get caught. They know about him in Mexico. He's a very distinctive-looking guy, too. And whatever, attempts he's made to try to disguise his appearance weren't particularly successful. So you have this 50-year-old guy traveling around with a 15-year-old girl. And how long does that go on for? For 6 months? You're traveling, you stop at this little hotel here, a motel, then you go there. What do you do in the meantime? You go to McDonald's, and you maybe try to sneak a movie in, and then you travel here. You're not living any kind of a life. You're not making roots anywhere. You're just on the run like a bunch of fugitives. And sooner or later, this young girl's probably going to get tired of this life. As soon as she gets tired, she's going to say, I'll go walk into a police station. I'm that girl that's missing, So this is doomed to some bad ending. That's what I think. And it's very pathetic. The guy's made his wife look ridiculous. And, he's suffering some type of crisis. He probably, if he gets arrested and charged with anything, will probably try to plead some type of, diminished mental capacity, although I'm not so sure how successful that's going to be because this was all planned. But what is he going to do for the rest of his life? Let's say he goes to jail for a couple of years. Then what happens to him? So
even though you said that she's 13 years old and she can't consent to anything. Obviously, that's true, but let's just say hypothetically, she said she was on board with this, she agreed to this, blah, blah, blah. Would the district attorney just not give that any credence whatsoever?
No, I think they'll have to give it some credence. There's a very big difference,
really,
between being forcibly, a very big difference between somebody forcing somebody to do something by threats or, drugs or extortion or something like that, and someone voluntarily, going along with you. I mean, it has to be treated differently. And it would be treated differently. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't rise to the level of a crime. It simply means that whatever crimes he could be charged with would not be as serious as someone that, grabbed some 15-year-old off the street and threw her in the car and took her across the country. That's about as serious as you can get. But if he said, hey, you want to come with me, you're going to be a runaway, jump in my car, we're going to take a ride, it's going to be a factor that the prosecution is going to consider. But the prosecution has the whole state and the whole country breathing down his neck, so he's going to do everything in his power to vigorously prosecute this guy.
It's going to be a pretty tough time for this guy in prison, too. As you said, you don't like the inmates that mess with the kids. And this is a well-known face now, so it'll probably be a big story once he's caught.
Yeah, I think he's going to get caught. But, it's not the same as, I don't see it as the same. It's not good, but I just don't see it as quite the same as somebody that's kidnapped somebody off the street and is sexually abusing them. That's horrible in the extreme. But, if she went along with them voluntarily, maybe they're not having any type of sexual relationship. Maybe it's more like a father-daughter. I don't know. But I think that, it's not clear what is going on. And another thing is, whenever he does get arrested, she may not be particularly cooperative with the prosecution. And if she's not cooperative, what is the prosecution going to do? He's going to put her in jail and say, we're going to keep you in jail until you cooperate? So there's a lot of obstacles the prosecution has to deal with here.
No question, no. But I think the fact that she's 15, they could bring in a doctor that said, she's just saying that to protect her because she's scared or whatever, like they usually do with these high cases. So we'll see what happens. It should be interesting. Also, the interesting case that's finally coming is only in 2 months. Bill Cosby going to trial in June. Here's the story.
Bill Cosby trial set for June. The Bill Cosby scandal was almost as big as the election. Let's just hope that justice is served here. The Cosby case will kick off in June in Philadelphia with the pool of anonymous Pittsburgh jurors. Now the judge, who is Stephen O'Neill, put the finishing touches on the June 5th trial with hopes to have his jury selected by late May. America's dad, Bill Cosby, is 79 years old. He is accused of drugging and sexually assaulting an employee from his alma mater, Temple University, at his house back in 2004. What are your predictions for trial in June? Let us know below or on Twitter using the hashtag BETBreaks. For more, jet over to BET.com and subscribe to BET Network's YouTube channel. I'm Jamela Mustafa at JMedia_ and you are watching BET Breaks.
Okay, so Bill Cosby finally to be charged. Well, the prosecution trying to charge Bill Cosby with this crime. 79 years old. So from the defense, what are you going to ask the jury if you're his attorney?
Well, I'm certainly going to ask the jury, if I'm his attorney, to keep an open mind, to ask whether or not these people are being completely honest and straightforward. When did they report the incident? Is there some financial incentive beyond this? Did you make any understandings or agreements with the prosecution in this case? Did anybody attempt to persuade you or push you into testifying in this case, whether it's the prosecution, the police, or some outside social organizations, or maybe the lawyers who represent the other women that are going to be filing some type of a lawsuit? Are you friends with these people, right? Why were you quiet all these years anyway? And who reached out to you and informed you needed to come to court? And did you make any kind of agreement with Mr. Cosby years ago and agree to settle whatever misunderstanding that you did have years ago? And if you did agree to some misunderstanding, why are you going back on that misunderstanding now? Who's pushing you to do this? Right? These are some of the questions I would want the jury to consider if I were the defense attorney in this case.
Would you try to use the race card? Because I see some comments on YouTube, and they say they're trying to take them down to see black. Would you go there like Johnny Cochran did with OJ?
I think that would be, that's a treacherous road, because some of the alleged victims are black. So
right,
that race card stuff that's not going to work very well if the people that are accusing you are African Americans. So if he decides to go that route, it may blow up in his face. I think the best route he can go down is that there is insufficient evidence to substantiate the allegations that have been made against him. The allegations are very old, right? Because they're so old, he is not in a position to adequately defend himself at this point, because so many years have passed, and witnesses or evidence that he may have been able to accumulate back then to support his defense is no longer available. And it would be very unfair at this point to bring somebody up on criminal charges when the case is as old as what it is.
Right. And from the prosecution, what is your most, what do you attack the most in terms of Bill Cosby?
Well,
what do you get at?
What the prosecution accomplished in this case, which still I think was grossly unfair. Again, even though I think Bill Cosby is guilty. I think he was, drugging these women. I think the guy's an absolute disgrace. It's unbelievable that anybody can engage in that type of behavior. It's amazing. One of these women didn't end up dead. You're giving them drugs like you're a pharmacist, without considering that maybe they were taking medication on the side themselves. Additional drugs could put you over the top. You can end up in a coma, brain damage, things like that. Didn't care, But in any event, but the fact of the matter is, in the case that's going to trial, he had made some type of agreement with the prosecution that he would make a statement about what happened on the grounds that that statement would not be used against him in a criminal trial, so that the woman could obtain a civil judgment. Now, the prosecution turned around and they said, oh, no. Even though he made that statement making some admissions of guilt, we can still use that statement because we don't consider that a valid agreement that we previously made. What the hell are they talking about? You make an agreement with a prosecution, that's a valid, binding agreement. And I don't care if it's a new prosecutor, okay? The prosecutor speaks for the people of that particular jurisdiction, and that's binding on subsequent prosecutors also. So I think it was very unfair what happened to Bill Cosby on that level. And I think even if he's convicted, it's going to end up being reversed. It cannot possibly be sustained because it's very unfair that they are now allowed to use that admission against him when he was promised it would not be used against him by the prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, that was in writing and everything, right?
No, it wasn't in writing. I don't believe it was in writing. And that's what the judge said. Well, it wasn't in writing. Well, so what? You don't have to have something in writing. You have an agreement. It could be a handshake with the prosecution. We agree to the following. The prosecutor who made the agreement with came in and admitted he made an agreement with him. Why does it have to be in writing? You make an agreement, you make an agreement. It doesn't have to necessarily be in writing. Came in and said, yeah, we made that agreement. Judge says he wasn't gonna give validity to that former agreement, saying, well, something like this needs to be in writing. Bull. And the appeals court, I guarantee you the appeals court are going to side with me on this.
And to be fair, how many women should be allowed to say it happened to them? Because, as you know, there's quite a lot, over 50. So how many is fair?
Well, I think that a judge determined that only a handful are going to be allowed to testify. I mean, personally, I think that, there probably should be a hearing to determine, like a pretrial hearing, to listen to all the women to determine which one of those types of allegations should be brought before this jury. And it would depend on how much evidence, the age of the case, things like that. But remember, any other allegation that comes in is going to be extremely prejudicial to Cosby's case.
Oh, sure.
Because it's going to make him look like he's a serial sex offender. And once the jury hears that, they're going to say, this is it. And he better pray that there is no African American women that are going to be allowed to testify against him at this trial. Because if they do, and I don't think race has anything to do with it, but if they do, it's over. I don't understand why this guy, why him, why the O'Reillys of the world, why do they need to be nasty and belligerent and use drugs and threats and everything else to obtain?
You could have paid those people to do this for a living.
Not even that. There's just women that are throwing themselves at these people. That because they're famous, because they're well known, they're throwing themselves. It would be. I remember watching Bill Cosby. He was always hanging out at the Playboy Mansion over there. So why is he engaged in this behavior? It's a mystery to me. Other than the fact that they're sick. And again,
I guess he feels invincible to a point. When you're that big and rich, invincible to a point.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I emphasized before, and I'll emphasize again, being rich and powerful and funny and famous and being well liked and talented and having all these adoring fans does not mean you do not suffer from serious psychological or psychiatric disorders. And that's what so many people that for example, loved Michael Jackson, they just they could not comprehend that this guy was a child molester. They just couldn't comprehend it. And they refused to accept it. Even though
the jury acquitted him.
Yeah, that's true. That was in that one case. But he admitted sleeping in bed with kids. And
that didn't make him look good. That didn't help anything. But
no, to anybody else, any other man who says they're sleeping in bed with kids, people would immediately brand him as a child molester. But because he's Michael Jackson, he gets some type of a pass. They're not going to hold that against him.
There were other kids that the prosecution said that it happened to, and they came up on the stand and said nothing happened to me. But I see what you're saying. But as a defense attorney, there's always 2 sides, 3 sides to the story.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see what happens with Bill Cosby. What's your prediction? Do you think he does any time?
I would be surprised if he does time because the guy's like 80. And the case is very old at this point. And it wouldn't surprise me if he does not do any type of time. I mean, Does he deserve time? Yeah, I think he does deserve time. But the guy's 80 years old. You know what I mean? And obviously it depends on how egregious the case is. They may not find him guilty of all the charges. Maybe they'll find him guilty of lesser offenses that are not mandatory jail. You know, there's a lot of factors that go into what type of sentence a person will be sentenced to if they're convicted. And we can only get a better idea whether or not he'll get jail once a jury delivers their verdict, obviously. But my inclination is that because he's as old as he is, and he's probably going to be paying out $100 million, I think it's not likely he's going to do any significant time in jail. Probably no more than a year or two, if at all.
I don't think he'll do any time. I think he'll be acquitted. But we'll soon find out. So Mayor de Blasio was on Hot 97 on one of the radio shows. Let's hear part of that interview where he talks about closing down Rikers Island, the jail here in New York City, and then we'll talk about it.
From New York, Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
Ladies and gentlemen, there he is, our mayor of New York City, friend of our program, Mayor de Blasio. Let's give it up for him right now.
Yay, welcome, Mayor.
Hey, Mayor.
Good morning. I always wanted friend of the show status.
You got it. There you go.
Yeah.
You got it. It took some years, but
I had to earn it.
That's right, man. Big headlines for you over the weekend. Rikers Island closing. It'll take 10 years. What I'm hearing, and maybe you can give us more information, is the idea is to put smaller facilities all around the city. And there's, quote, you said this, some tough decisions that'll have to be made. So can you, A, address the closing, and B, talk more about these tough decisions?
Absolutely, bro. It's time to close Rikers Island. We're going to do it. We had to be sure it could be done. That's why it took a while to get to this decision. We had to be sure we could drive down our jail population to the point that we would not need Rikers Island anymore. And, just yesterday we unveiled the crime statistics for the month of March, and crime was down 12% this March compared to last March. We had 11 fewer homicides. Overall crime continues to go down as it has in the 3 years I've been in office. Why is that so crucial? Because that was the number one thing we had to be certain about. Could we keep driving down crime, therefore fewer people being arrested, fewer people going to jail, get that population in our jail system, our whole jail system, Rikers plus 3 other jails right now, 9,300 people. We want to get that down to 5,000 people on any given day. That's what allows us to get out of Rikers once and for all. No more inmates on Rikers. And I came to the conclusion it could be done. The tough decisions are, one, to keep that work going, keep driving down crime, keep doing the other reforms, the alternative sentencing, the bail reform, the things that keep people out of jail. To begin with, the mental health work my wife Charlene is doing to address mental health issues so people don't end up in encounters with law enforcement. All of this has to keep going. We're going to have to spend money on that. We're going to have to make decisions about how we spend. But the other thing we're going to have to do is find at least a few sites for new jail facilities. I think it only has to be a few. It is not, you said earlier, all over the city. No, I don't think it's all over the city. I think it's a few places that will allow us the capacity to no longer need jail. That's something we have to do with the city council. That's an open public process that takes quite a while for communities to weigh in and council members to get to a vote on that. But I think we can find a few sites that make sense. And we have 10 years to do it because it's going to take that long to get the population down to the point we can get off Rikers altogether.
How do you go about doing that, though, the population down in a direct fashion?
One, it's driving down crime. I mean, let me give you an example. 20 years ago in this city, our jail system had over 20,000 people in it. This morning we got about 9,300 people in all our jails combined. We've shown steady progress on that, from 55% reduction in mass incarceration in New York City over the last 20 years. We've particularly driven that down since I came into office. 23% reduction in the population on Rikers Island just since I came into office. And a lot of that correlates to driving down crime. We're now confident we can keep driving down crime. And so, that's the building block. If you're not arresting people because they're not committing crime, they're not going to jail. And then the other thing
I think, Mayor, too, what Rosenberg's asking about is, some people don't understand the purpose of Rikers. There are people in Rikers waiting for a trial and waiting for a long time. And sometimes the system gets bogged down and people end up staying there longer than anticipated and not being able to get out and deal with whatever the issue is. Is some of that also addressing our system of dealing with things in a more efficient manner?
Yeah, in a more fair manner. Look, the city part of the equation is policing and jails, but we depend on the state. The state runs the court system. The state is the part that regulates the prosecutors. They're part of the puzzle here, too. Court system has to become more effective and more efficient. Prosecutors have to do all they can to move cases along. You're right. There's a lot of people who are on Rikers awaiting trial. We've got to make that process faster. There's a lot of people who are awaiting trial who shouldn't be there to begin with because we need to do more to provide alternative approaches to bail so that no one's sitting in Rikers because they can't afford a modest bail. And that's something we're working on, too. So there's a lot of different ways to reduce the population and reduce the amount of time people spend there. There's another group of people, it's about 8,500 people a year, who are sentenced to spend time on Rikers. Their conviction leads to a sentence, but it's a brief sentence, 1 year or less. They can be on Rikers, too, as opposed to going to an upstate prison. For those folks, we want to make sure they never come back to jail. And so this last week I also announced we're going to do a series of things to provide education and training to everyone who's in Rikers to help them get back on their feet and rehabilitate. We're going to start talking about reentry to society literally the first day they come into jail. We're going to say, this is your first day in jail. We want it to be the last time you're ever in jail. And for folks who are sentenced, serve their time at Rikers, we're going to have a transitional job waiting for them when they come out. For 8,500 people, there will be a transitional job waiting so that they can get right back in the workforce and never have another encounter with law enforcement. All of that will reduce recidivism. That's amazing. It's good humanly, but it'll reduce recidivism. That's another way we drive down the jail population.
Well, so, Mayor, I read that number you were setting aside, $10 million for these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And so where is that money coming from?
That's going to be part of the city budget.
And
we think it's a good investment. Ebro, you will be shocked and amazed to know that the New York Post attacked me and said I was going to give jobs to criminals.
That's right. We talked about it on the show. You want every criminal to get a job. All you got to do is commit a crime, and de Blasio will give you a job.
And they have it entirely backwards. We're in a city right now, thank God we have over 4.3 million jobs in the city. The city economy is very strong, lowest unemployment we've had in decades. There are a lot of jobs out there for everyday people. But what we want to do is make sure that folks coming out of jail, who in this case, if they served time on Rikers, they did modest crimes in the scheme of things, we want them back on their feet, rehabilitated, redeemed, never go back to jail. Small investment to make sure that people get on the right track. Whenever we succeed, we are not only doing the moral and humane thing towards that individual, we're also, from a taxpayer point of view, if someone never goes back to jail, it's one of the smartest investments we ever made, because they go back to jail, we're going to spend.
Okay, Alex, what did you make of what you're planning to do with Rikers Island? You're probably familiar with it as you lawyer with people with that jail. And but what do you make of Mayor de Blasio and what he's saying? Do you believe him? And what's your opinion overall on Mayor de Blasio here in New York City?
I certainly think programs he wants to institute are good. You want to, there's not enough mental health facilities of social workers or psychiatrists that treat the inmates when they're in jail and when they release. That's good. I think it's great that there should be some type of training or some type of assistance to inmates when they're leaving the jail so that maybe they could, help them get a job somewhere when they get out. All that's great. But the idea that you're going to close down Rikers Island, it's utterly ridiculous. I've been to Rikers Island. The place is a giant facility. It's a massive facility. Yeah. And there's thousands of people there, right? You have people there that you have people there that are awaiting trial. You have people there that are have committed, let's say, parole violations or probation violations. Rikers Island, in order to try to close down Rikers Island, well, you'd have to build all kinds of housing somewhere else. That means that you'd have to, let's say, either in Manhattan, I don't know where in Manhattan they could possibly build a giant jail near the courthouse, which is a great idea, but we're talking about building a massive facility that could hold, 2,000 inmates? Then you have to have facilities. Part of that facility, you have to have medical facilities there. There's facilities for security forces have to watch people that come in and out. You have to have that all set up. You have to have transportation for the inmates for wherever they need to go, whether it's to the local courthouse, even if it's just a few miles away or a few hundred feet away. They still need to get into some type of a bus to transfer to the courthouse. It's a massive, massive undertaking. And if you want to have programs, you have to have programs in those jails. You have to have social workers in there. You have to have medical facilities in there. You have to have visiting facilities in there. And that's just one jail. To try to replicate the amount of jail space that occurs at Rikers Island, you're talking probably a good 40 to 50 buildings in and around New York City. And I don't know where exactly they would build those facilities. And the idea that this could be done in 10 years it's almost preposterous. All the attorneys I've spoken to think this is utterly ridiculous, right?
Oh, really?
You're not going to close down Rikers Island. Yeah, you're not going to close down Rikers Island, and you're not going to build little jails in and around the various boroughs to make up for all those people that are currently sitting at Rikers Island. Now, what I think they should do, they should build definitely smaller facilities near the courthouses. But you're not going to house everybody that's at Rikers Island in these facilities. But what they should do is house those people that have pending cases in the courthouse that are on trial or something like that, so that you're not wasting a lot of time transporting people back and forth from the court while they're doing trials or when they have to make court appearances. That would make some type of sense. But I think it's wholly unrealistic to believe you're going to, and it's also wholly unrealistic to believe that he's going to cut the population down in half. I mean, I'm glad that crime is going down, but it's not going to go down that much. And what if it goes back up? You still have to have a place to house these people in case there's an uptick in crime. So I do believe that he has some good ideas, but some of his ideas are simply not realistic.
So what do you make of him as our mayor compared to, like, Giuliani, the one, David Dinkins way back here in New York? Kind of grade do you give him?
I give him a very low grade. I don't have a particularly high opinion of de Blasio. I don't know of anything that he's accomplished.
Who do you think was the best mayor here in New York?
The best mayor? Well, the best mayor.
Some people say Ed Koch.
Yeah, well, Koch was pretty good. Probably Bloomberg was pretty good. He was a businessman. He did a pretty good job, Bloomberg. Dinkins, at least he represented himself in a respectful way, Dinkins. But de Blasio, he's just doesn't seem to be doing anything except saying things. But in terms of achieving concrete achievements, I can't think of a single concrete achievement he's made.
Who is the worst?
That stands out in my mind. The worst mayor of all? Well, you'd probably have to go back. You'd have to go back a number of years. There was a mayor back in the 1920s named Jimmy Walker who used to hang out with call girls all day long, and he could not stand being engaged in any type of mayoral business in New York City. And when there was too much work to do, he would get off and take a 2-month vacation in Europe. So finally, they threatened to indict him, so he was forced to resign. So he was probably considered the worst mayor in New York City.
That sounds like quite a story. But before we, what do you think of Donald Trump and the way things have been going for his first 100 days as president?
I have a prediction and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. And I think Donald Trump is going to end up resigning as the president because
my parents said that. You know.
Yeah, for a number of different reasons. Number one, he's created a lot of enemies, and when you create a lot of enemies, some of these enemies are going to reveal some dark information about you. And I believe there is some dark information about him. You know, who knows whether or not there are videotapes or there's documents that would greatly compromise who he is as a person. But if they're out there, somebody's going to come forward and they're going to be produced. That's one reason. The second reason is that he keeps getting beaten on all of whatever proposals he's trying to make. He keeps getting beaten. He's out of his league. He really is right now. I know a lot of people like him, but the reality is that, you know, he doesn't understand Washington, and that's why people voted for him, but he's not getting anywhere. And I was just watching him today, and I was saying to myself, he looks very, very tired and worn out.
Yeah,
and
a few months.
I think that, and I think that all these factors coming together, one day he's going to get up and he says, you know something, I am sick and tired of this, and I just want out. I want to go back to my life as it once was. His wife is not happy, from what I understand, because she's living in Manhattan, and they got all this security over there. She can't even take her kids out anymore. He's not happy living in the White House. You know, I spoke to some people that worked in the White House, and they told me, you know, the White House, believe it or not, is much smaller than it appears. Yeah, you got a few big rooms where you have meetings and you have dining rooms, but, you know, beyond that, yeah, there's a place where, you know, the first family eats dinner. Then there's a few other offices and private residences. Donald Trump, I believe, is suffering from claustrophobia in that place. His wife does not stay there. His kid does not stay there. His daughter doesn't. He's sleeping by himself in that room somewhere. I think it's all beginning to affect him. And I think one day he's going to reach the breaking point, and with looming investigations or looming evidence that's about to be exposed about him, I think one day he's going to say, you know something, I want out of here. I'm finished. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tried to kill him. I mean, I don't think they'd be successful with cameras and bodyguards and etc. But I could see some nut going crazy and wanting to kill Mr. Trump. I don't wish it. I would never want to see that happen. No. But there are a lot of crazies in this country. You know what I mean? And yeah. One thing is true. If you're a very famous, well-known person, yeah, there are nuts out there that you have to watch out for. That is a fact. But, yeah, look at they did to John Lennon. Yeah, hopefully that. You know, that guy came up for John Lennon's killer came up for parole not that long ago. Mark denied,
David Chapman. Right? Yeah, it was denied.
Same thing with what's his name? The guy in California, Manson. Charles Manson. But Charles Manson has been, he's been eligible for parole for many, many years, but they just keep denying him. And, you know, he shouldn't be paroled. And you know those other people, the women that were part of the killing group? Yeah, the followers. You know, they've been in jail for 45 years, and they're old and they want to get out. You know what? I don't think they should get out. What they did to Tate was horrendous. I mean, they cut her open and took the baby out. Even though there was some of them were like 16 when they did it, right? Yeah, you know what? You don't take that into consideration. Man, not when you're going and cutting people's stomach opens and taking babies out and writing Helter Skelter on the walls. And the purpose of writing Helter Skelter on the walls in blood, that was supposed to create a race riot. I mean, these people were complete madmen or mad women. And
you got to pay for your actions in this life, and that's it.
Even though he never actually pulled the trigger of all time, would you say
He was
Charlie
never even there.
Manson is right? Would you think
He
of
was
him
not there,
as the
but-
worst killer of all time?
Well, he's not the worst killer of all time because there's other people that have killed more than he has. Timothy McVeigh blew up a building and killed 150 people.
BTK killer.
Yeah, what a diabolical guy that guy was. The BTK killer. He killed
Jeffrey
a lot
Dahmer.
of people too. Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer was a legitimate nut job. Jeffrey Dahmer.
I think he couldn't help it. He couldn't help it, but he was sick, I think.
Yeah, this guy was into cannibalism and everything else. But there was something pathetic about Jeffrey Dahmer. But there are killers that are worse than Manson, that have killed more people, but he's bad. And he directed these people to commit these atrocities, and thank God he hasn't seen the light of day. There's a show on TV. There's a show on TV I like to watch called Forged in Fire. You ever watch that show, Forged in Fire? It's about people they make weapons, knives. They compete who can make the best weapon and knife. I find it an interesting show. But one of the guys on that show is like, a doppelganger for Charles Manson. He looks just like him.
Oh my, that must be scary.
Yeah, you got to watch that show to see this guy. It's amazing.
Speaking of shows, this Sunday, there's a 3-part documentary on Casey Anthony on the ID Network. So they're going to revisit
so tired of her. I am so tired of her. Really, I want her to go away. When I see articles about her, it just doesn't interest me anymore. It's played out. You can't extract anything more from that case.
And if you see the mother, she looks so worn out, and I'm sure she is. But
How
I
about
think
the
we have
father,
the honor. Yeah, he looks. Just the two of them, and you see the attorneys are. I'm sure it'll get some good ratings. But we do have a call here. I think we have Sarah Kardashian. I think she joined us here tonight. Hi, Sarah. You here?
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sarah,
Hi, Alex.
how are you?
I'm
All right,
good,
how's it
thanks.
going?
Good. Really interesting show tonight. I think one of the takeaways is that powerful, wealthy people just have this entitlement gene in them, I guess. And I think most of them walk around thinking they can get away with anything. And the whole Fox network thing, I think I was alarmed with the whole Roger Ailes case last fall or whenever it took place. And I'm not surprised about Bill O'Reilly because there were accusations or allegations, whatever you want to call them, years ago. And it just bothers me that if the network's going to keep him on, if it's true, if they're all true, and there must be some substance to it if these women got all this money, and I don't know, it astounds me that they just think he's just this shining star that still needs to be on the air. The other thing is, like with the $9 million or $13 million or whatever, that always gives me pause because I tend to think that this could be something that would lead to false accusations. Somebody really thinking, "Oh my God, she got $9 million." Well, and just falsely accuse someone. It's a real difficult situation. And as far as the teacher and the student, yeah, I believe that she's 15. She has legally she can't make a decision on her own, and 15 years old, their brains are scrambled anyway. So whether she went willingly or not, I look at it as a kidnapping, and apparently they were seen kissing each other a week before they left the city. But I do have to say something, and I don't want to blame the parents, but I always believe in prevention. And in my opinion, no 15-year-old should have any privacy when it comes to media, when it comes to their phone or their computer or social media. I truly believe that you have to watch what your child is doing. Apparently, there were many, many texts and emails back and forth between the two of them. So I believe in prevention. Like I said, I'm not blaming the mother, but I do believe that something could have been prevented if someone had known what she was up to. Except for the 13-year-old's mother, the 13-year-old that was raped by Roman Polanski. Now, to me, that is a totally different story, and I do have really negative feelings about her mother because she allowed her 13-year-old daughter to go to Jack Nicholson's house because she wanted her daughter to break into the business, and look what happened. And I really, truly, I'm not a lawyer, but I really, truly believe that was reckless disregard for her child. I just can't even wrap my mind around that you would let your 13-year-old daughter be in that environment. And as far as Roman Polanski, I'm sure you've all heard, the judge said, no, you can't come back. And you know what? I'm glad. I am, just because he needs to do some time, in my opinion. And as far as Bill Cosby, Alex, I agree with you about the original agreement between the prosecutor and the defense attorneys. I just am beside myself that this would happen in our justice system. An agreement is an agreement, and I feel that yes, he's probably the biggest pervert that we've seen in a long time. And it's absolutely disgusting and sickening what his actions supposedly are. But I really think that they should have held up that agreement. And like I said, not because I like him so much or I think he's innocent, but they should have held up that agreement. And I just think it's another situation, even with Bill O'Reilly, the whole celebrity factor. I mean, O.J. Simpson, people who love these people, who love these celebrities, don't want them to be guilty. No, I mean, even when I hear about a story where a parent has done something horrible to a child, I always hope it's not the mother. I hope it's not the father. I hope it's not the spouse that killed the spouse. I always want that boogeyman. I just want that. I just would feel so much better if it was the boogeyman and not someone that knew this person and loved this person. I don't know. I've rambled again, haven't I? Alex, I do have two questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as far as Bill Cosby, there was a hearing, and I don't think that there was a decision yet. Apparently, the prosecution is digging up as much as they can, and he wrote a book, and he also had a monologue where he talked about a joke about a Spanish fly, and they want to bring that into the trial. So I want your opinion on that.
I heard about that.
Okay, and I also want your opinion.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, just on that Spanish fly issue, I don't think it would be fair to bring that in there because that was part of his comedy act. And, so I think it's pushing the envelope.
So you think the judge won't let it in?
I don't think the judge is going to let it in. Okay. He's saying a joke, and they're going to try to bring it in to try to damage his credibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing about sexual harassment, and maybe you know this, if someone perceives that they are sexually harassed, is it their obligation to confront that person before they make a complaint, or can they make a complaint without confronting the person, without saying, knock it off, I don't want to hear this? or
No, you don't have to confront the person. You may be intimidated by that person. Why do you have to
what I
confront
thought.
them?
No, but that's what I thought too, and then someone else was saying that you have to.
No, you're shifting the burden of responsibility from the harasser to the person that's being harassed. And why should there be that type of burden shifting? You know, if a person has committed some type of sexual harassment, what, you should then have to confront them? You are probably in an inferior position as it is, and then you're supposed to do what? Tell them, hey, you harassed me? That's a nonsense. No, you should take steps to try to report it to the proper authorities. Although that business at Fox, they had a hotline where you could supposedly call up and report sexual harassment. I mean, come on, what kind of a joke is that?
Right.
Roger Ailes, they believe was tapping people's phone calls. And what was going on with that information anyway? I wish there was one person that did use that phone, and I would have liked to have found out what happened to them. You know,
is New York a two-party state?
Bogus.
Is New York a two-party state? If you record a conversation, do you have to have the other person's knowledge of it?
No, you don't have to have the other person's knowledge.
Oh, okay. Because California is. Yeah, so I was just curious.
No.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Great talking to you, Sarah. Appreciate your observations.
Thank you. And thank you, Jordan, for your great show all the time. You take care now, both of you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
And Alex, great show indeed. We had tonight some good topics with Cosby and the teacher and Bill O'Reilly and whatnot. So I appreciate
a lot of big stories
coming
out
in
there.
Yeah,
a lot of big stories out there all of a sudden, and you know, makes for good grist for the legal community.
Definitely. So hopefully we'll get you back on the show. We'll have you back sooner than later, because
all right, buddy.
fans like listening to you.
Good night to you and all the great listeners and all the great listeners of the show. Good night.
I think Mary is definitely listening. She listens a lot. Call her Mary. We also have Vicky who listens, Madeline, and Pager. So that's that. Thanks, Alex.
Right.
Speak soon. Okay, folks. So Alex did a great job for us tonight. Go listen to this on iTunes when you get a chance. Follow us on King Jordan RAD on Twitter. Some great stories with Bill O'Reilly to think about. Bill Cosby coming up in 2 months. It won't be televised because they don't do that in Pennsylvania with sex cases. So you won't see that. So we also had that teacher story. That is very bizarre, and I hope they get that guy real soon. And the Mayor de Blasio story, trying to close the prison here in New York that's been around for a long time. Again, thanks, Maddie, for checking in, listening. Phyllis, Vicky, Pager, everybody who checked it. So thank you very much. We're going to leave you with a Throwback Thursday song. We're going to go to one of my favorite songs from 1992, Mariah Carey, When a Hero Comes Along. Good night from King.